Ogie. 3 days to white sun, winter solstice. Northern realms. December 18th, 2023 ADESC. So often what happens to people is they flee genocide in their local glade of origin, their place of origin, whether or not they have demented ideas or perfect, reliable uh, whether they're criminals or have a criminal history or whatever. That's common right now, or misbehaving or whatever. People flee genocide in their place of origin. That's just what it is. The whole world's extreme dystopian and else vulgarity. So this morning's meditation reflection, Daymern, was kind of focused on that. And so there's a couple possible reasons for it. For one, can't even invoke seeking out better opportunities without the internet acoustic things lighting up and uh, entrapping them. So that's demagoguery, anti-egalitarian, and it's anthemic to the North American spirit. It does come from my I'm the eighth enduring sun god, and the seventh enduring sun god was born into Western Europe. And that was also extreme dystopian, denounced vulgarities. Only they had much less material development and were extremely dominated by the demagoguery of ancients and old ancients and modern ancients at that time. So what they did, and basically every Caesar does it, is founded a holding, a trade house. Well, because that's what's in the architecture, that's what's standardized throughout all the ages. And literally Western Europe is named after never doing this again, right? Western Europe is where all the anti-egalitarian, nihilistic philosophy emanates from. They literally hate organized chattel porn and everything about it, because the demagogue rules there. No, they certainly have imperial and royal houses, right? leftovers from the various attempts to organize and provide self-preservation for themselves. So, on my cousin's door to his bedroom or bathroom or something in his basement of his mother's house, when I was a child, there was a poster. I don't remember what it looked like. I think it was kind of spattered with uh, moisture and things, like it was not well taken care of or whatever. But it was all fallacy begins with misunderstandings of reality, right? And so anyway, out of these lessons of Europe, uh, an economic theory developed, and it's not new. I mean, it just gets renaissance. They recover it, called liberalism. And they have an omen laissez-faire, and let it be, right? Which the divine holy alliance of political parties surrounding the Caesar of the world, including communist China. And it is known. Uh, I'm not like I prefer laissez-faire in that organizing chattel born is a chaotic and foolhardy activity, right? And obviously, the last 8 human sizers, the 7, have endeavored to do this as a block, whole continents. What we have now are asymmetric uh, supports from Hades and associations. So the future leaders should really be aware that although enticing, a this is what I wrote on the subject. There are precedents in the various localities that recovered from extreme dystopian and vulgarity to a great degree. But after a certain period, all these trade houses do inevitably descend into the very vulgar demagoguery, and that they're founded to protect the chattel born from. And they go rotten. So, in a humorous way, I mean, it's true. We wrote, I don't want to find it. So, in a humorous way, an acrylics, right? So, to be free, so the idea is we found a trade house block on each continent. So, to be free, they enslave us, right? Bullocks. So that's the nature of laissez-faire. Let it be. Uh, do you realize the chattel born would never be able to figure that out? Would constantly be in turmoil Oh, that's the problem. However, ancient citizens point out that it's a paradox because, in effect, these are both ultimately true. You're both, as chattelborn, and obviously they'll read the citizens and have already, the freeborn. Both are ultimately true that you're free to do whatever you want. Free society, free open society. But it's also ultimately true that you're, as chattelborn of the world, my legal possession. It's a paradox. That's not humorous, it's just a paradox. However, the humorous part is the idea is we found a trade house based on rules and structure, right? But in effect, it's to free us, enslave us, or like the Soviets used to say. Whatever with that. Old boss, same as the new boss. We pretend to work, and they pretend to lead. Right? I know ghettos are pathetic. I know the legacy of child scoop, recovering escaped chattel slaves, chattel forced labor is pathetic. It does trouble us. I don't know. There's two Hellenistic stories that we penned. Initially, we were going to do some sort of sensational, attention grabbing denouncement of the whole thing, but anyway, that's not wise. So I'll tell the stories. Wherever everyone can get an idea. Well, also, there's a technical note here. The idea of a trade house block, although practiced by every sizer before me, every predecessor, has always failed and ended rotten. They named Western Europe after it, swearing off ever doing it again. So, here's the technical issue that the generation that the sizer is born into, now this one's called millennial this time, and the generation previous to my birth is called Gen X. So in effect, Gen X has no IQ of their own. They're all chattelborn. So in 64th peerage, so technically the foundation would be managers with no IQ in a weak and new trade house. I should think that'd be enough from engineering, legionary engineering perspective, to realize that the foundation of such a thing is founded in incapable leaders. No, that's what I thought of when I first heard it. But so essentially, what I felt, and let's go to Felix, uh, is the nihilistic philosophers and the anti-egalitarians become very gluttony. Mm, their fury increases at the invocation of it. And they know it's a right. Right away, their fury of gluttony increases. So anyway, so two stories. So we're working on another creative art, more accurate retelling of the creation of the royal house of Britain, King Arthur. The royal houses of Britain, and in that story, the future king of Britain, a Roman citizen at that time, and commander in the legionary phalanx, was nearly arrested under the Mental Health Act of Rome, retrieving an Aquilix that was stolen by the barbarians. And through a quick thinking intervention, divine intervention, the Roman enlisted at the gate were distracted, and he made it out through Hadrian's wall into the hinterland and retrieved the Aquilix. Anyway, I mean, both the barbarians and the Romans were trying to kill or arrest who became the King of Britain, King of England, right? So this is Hellenistic creative stories. They're fictional, however, there's a lesson. And if like I say, we were uh, going to tell a much more sensational, attention-grabbing story. But anyway, the lesson is both these characters are suffering from demagoguery in their community and unnatural subjugation of their peerage 64th degree. So we named this character Jamie Schoolhouse. Jamie Schoolhouse, who grows frustrated with his incestuous mother and the demented local cult of his urban ghetto polis of origin anywhere in the world. Hatches a plan to go on a walkabout. He walks into the wilderness. He walks from anywhere now, anywhere world, but we place this one in Canada. It's got some landmarks. He walks from Prince Edward Island, across the bridges and rivers, through the urban ghettos, all the way to the Big Apple. Walks around, sees the sight he saw when he was a kid before he reached puberty. Always wanted to see him. Thought he might find something there. Some insight into the nature of humanity. So he sees all the sights and continues to walk about, passing many insular communities. And eventually he comes to the realization the whole known world is suffering from extreme dystopia and denounced vulgarities. Satisfied with this and gaining insight into the true nature of mankind, he returns to his place of origin, Prince Edward Island, on a long journey. Tired, skinny, filthy. Is this criminal behavior? No. Yet, you can be arrested under the Mental Health Act for that. So, anyway, further to that, and unbeknownst to him, for the 3 years he was away, his concerned family was writing and phoning social services and the police and just hysteric. Where is their Jamie? Schoolhouse. Now our character is 38 years old. Where's our Jamie Schoolhouse? We need him back. We need him back in our community, safe with us. What kind of maniac leaves our safe community? Why would he leave us? Anyway, so he's placed in a mental institution where they treat him for schizophrenia and jabbing him with needles and daily medications and chats with a psychiatrist. And for the rest of his life, he has one healthy masculine adventure to recall. Imprisoned for going on a walk. Alright. So, this is not a crime what Jamie Schoolhouse did. However, they imprisoned him. Demagoguery. So, then we created another character, Arthur Schmidt. Arthur Schmidt, dissatisfied with a urban ghetto, hopeful of finding a job somewhere, perhaps a wife or something, like, sets out on a walkabout from anywhere world. We don't really have a destination on this one. So, dissatisfied with the brutal ghetto and lack of work and opportunities of any kind in the barbaric babbling of drug addicts and the listless, the unproductive. Let's make this one 58 years old, an adopter of the internet. He sets out on a personal quest to find something better. Also not a crime. So he goes out on a walkabout and he sees much wilderness, breathes fresh air, exercising, all good, healthy masculinity. He's committing no crime. Uh, After some time of passing through urban centers, passing out resumes, talking to people in their way, learning the local culture of the clads, he also becomes aware the whole known world is extreme dystopia and denounced vulgarity. Now, what is becoming aware for certain that the whole known world is extreme dystopia and denounced vulgarity criteria? And what is it for an individual with the intention, a scholarly intention of endeavoring on a walkabout? What is the criminality in this? Yet they're harassed by police, insular communities, the whole world. It does not have the money to leave, the resources to leave the urban ghetto. Yet there's sidewalks and roads everywhere. There's trails, right? So we built this infrastructure at great cost. You understand what I'm saying? Yet we don't use it because it's unsafe. So the political scientists, and I agree, I transcribe this. This is a result, what they call colonialism, I call failed imperial institution, and it harkens to problems like child scoop, truancy from work. Truancy, right? Oh, you didn't call and we were worried about you from work. So, not telling your legal contractual obligations that you're leaving. What free people do? I've had enough of the workplace. It's unhealthy, or whatever it is. And then the more troubling for me, and of course for everyone else engaged in developing the economy, is what they call escaped chattel property recovery. Literally following people leaving or attempting to escape genocide in their post origin. Well, it is what it is. So I know, like the clans get irritated with economic development, but they also get irritated with no economic activity. So, anyway, so that's the two healingistic stories for medicine. All third world and fourth world countries are dominated in part by the ancient demagogues engaged in human trafficking and worse. It's just a fact. They all report it. We know what the nations are. It's in their news. They freely talk about it. Apparently, the first world countries, the demagoguers don't have a hold over their citizens. And they live, well, I can't imagine. I've never experienced it. I've been in the United States of America, a second world country. And if that's a second world country, however, they're definitely stabler. Okay, so that is a second world country. I'm sorry. To call the data into question, it doesn't make sense. It's just unbelievable. And obviously, they're a second world country because they're compared to the other countries, not utopia. They just score higher than the rest. Okay, so labor mobility is an issue, especially with all the insular urban ghettos. And it brings to mind this two two crime infested insular ghettos popular in three. One has no work at all. One has a little bit of cringe meager menial labor work, or even boroughs of a ghetto. Two political units, anyway. That's they've got different politicians, different traditions, different people, a different culture. So let's say it's McDonald's requires still people or some kind of job. There's McDonald's all over the world. They're constantly looking for work or human resources. And what do we do as third world countries? We seek out foreign labor. Why? Why is that? So what we do is we put our sovereignty responsibility to the urban ghetto dweller. We don't invest in them at all. Right? We know why they're unwilling to leave one click to another click. It's unsafe. So we seek out foreign labor and displace our own sovereign responsibility. Each nation and nation within nation has a sovereign responsibility. Oh, that's where the paternalistic, the extraordinary monarchs and ordinary paternalistic in the Liberal Party start to diverge. And that's just what an alliance is of political parties. So, right, and however, we're both basically laissez-faire. Okay, so I wrote it too messy here because I was transcribing instead of thinking. What is it? It's so labor mobility on these big housing build programs that we're trying to do in North America. Uh, and multiculturalism among the auxiliaries, the useful auxiliaries, the logistical branch. Uh, Obviously, retrieving escape workers near chattel property is an issue still that under no delusion exists, right? They want to talk about great Greg's social mobility legislation without the necessary sensitive discussion about the eugenics of the worker and their actual condition. Okay, so obviously you're all barbarians. However, we do have to figure out how to humanely create social mobility in North America. Now, the liberals, they won't talk about they won't, too sensitive, right? NDP, what? Personal medical physician. Don't talk about it, they say, right? Don't talk about your eugenics. The Greens are aware of it for certain. However, they have environmental focus on, like, in their constitution, in their party constitution, housing, sovereignty, reliable incomes. Yes. However, how they're exactly going to do all that is questionable. However, they're part of the alliance as well. And there's several others, but they don't have, however, they don't have sitting members. So, um, so what happens is these in a third world country and fourth world country, the political structures, uh, even though a representative democracy, they're not facing the very eugenic nature of the populace. And that's really the disconnect from the capitals with a C to the regions, right? A failure of habeas corpus carnal laws. So back to I'm busy. Yeah, I'm recording. Do you want to be on the internet talking? Okay, then be silent. I suppose that's enough for that. Those two stories. Social mobility. There are job opportunities, and I know the plague, COVID-19, and the lockdowns really do irritate everyone, right? I was already in prison. I didn't notice, really. Uh, all right. So no, I don't need to bring up that either. So what happens is we have this kind of alteration, this this habit of, because there's a failure in fundamental habeas corpus crime laws. If you look over the last, well, really founding of the institutions of North America and the other institutions, relatively the same period, of electing a government body to solve the realistic issues. They begin to engage in this, which takes time. And by the time they start to show improvement, the next election happens. And they elect a reactionary, authoritarian, demagogue appealing big spender that cuts the programs and meant to reform the put in place to reform. See, so it's a fallacy. So anyway, this compared to the traditional way the ancestors dealt with these problems. So founding a trade company that captures all the chattel born in one sort of unit, right? To what our method is now, asymmetric, uh, decentralized. It means decentralized support and building associations and mentoring leaders. If I'm missing anything here, the let me know. I think they promise some kind of quick and easy solution in the traditions of our people. They'd have failed previously, right? Who's they? People trying to inspire you and give you hope, or possibly exploited by the demagogues. Possibly the only reason the demagogues haven't consumed yet. Um, so I'm open to hearing about founding trade houses because I'm a novice in it, but I think it's asymmetric. Like if a community, let's say Chicago, wants to organize as a block, the whole urban city of Chicago wants to organize as a block. They call them block houses, trade houses. Uh, and that's their culture. So, like in the older Eastern North America, they did this in the architecture in the 16 and 1700s, and it's in their architecture, so it makes sense to them, right? Unlimited corporations, they would because they knew they were chattel born and vulnerable. They would organize a co-op. So that makes sense, and that's in line with the extraordinary monarchist and ordinary paternalistic party's constitution so far. However, a massive bloc, it would give the demagogue uh, an object to focus, to fixate all the demented barbarians' attention on, just like happened to my predecessor in Western Europe. And they sacked the place, right? Like locusts, the golden horde. So, so that was long after organization failed. But they literally hate everything about it over there and perfuse the anti-egalitarian and nihilistic agenda. That's what's left of the seventh benevolent organization of the chattel. So, it's not wise, is it? Do to do or endeavor to do what all your predecessors did, and for a period was successful and relieved and organized. However, ultimately corrupts and goes rotten, and everyone hates it. Right? So laissez faire. You should know most political scientists are from the East. Oh, social mobility. Um, the simplest of things is, we're all cringe meager. No resources. Obviously, if you're a urban dweller and your mother and father were urban dwellers, and their mother and father were urban dwellers, and their mother and father were urban dwellers, the last ones to work at a reliable factory or something, right? And their mother and father were chattel slaves on or chattel labor on a ranch or something, and they were refugee relocated to the urban center, or the Irish or whatever. I mean, this is the nature of North America. Uh, get the point as the barbarians. So, labor mobility. Okay, it's not social mobility, it's labor mobility. Okay, so labor mobility. So obviously you don't want to be replaced by foreigners. I've heard that and it's a grievance and it's real. Foreigners obviously when their skills that are necessary, right? But not just blanket as much in replacement of. So what do we do? Because the traditional liberals, they're not going to go out into the ghettos and missionary work, right? No, most of them are not capable of the full liberal ideas of personal freedom. And so one has to realize when you join a corporate structure, you give up a certain amount of your personal sovereignty, whether you're a Klansman or a freeborn, in return for a reliable self-preservation arrangement. Now, obviously, the great hope of the 1950s was that everyone would be housed, have vacations, meaningful caustic things. Some places it worked, and that's not the reality now, right? So they're still chatting about 1950s values in the media, right? And the capitals are not able to project into the hinterland and have lost their validity. Well, not only validity, but that's literally what they're supposed to do, is organize this politically and answer grievances, and they can't do it anymore. It's not some revolutionary idea. You can or you cannot organize the hinterland. This architectural idea, anything but the capital is the hinterland, the provincia. So they often make laws that nobody follows, nobody knows about, nobody can understand. So complex that self-gratifying, really. And what? They may as well be talking to themselves. Anyway, the Empirics Forum, you do project into it as a full freeborn, and that's the nature of that. You either do have carnal habeas corpus laws, and you are able to project into the Empirics Forum, Grand and Grix and Good and Glade, or the whole nation is so barbaric that nobody leaves the ghetto, even though it's pathetic, to work. So anyway, let's for a moment let's give the liberals some credence and say we can legislate labor mobility. How would we do that? Well, you make media announcements, campaign of media that at least the important areas, if they can afford to do that, to are aware that there will be some labor movement. However, everyone we can draw from to labor building houses is completely broke and unskilled. So a massive build program is troubled by lack of skill, lack of organization, and North America's reality, which we openly discuss, extraordinary monarchists and ordinary paternalistic, however the liberals have deemed too impolite. However, they're little cousins, so that's what it is. So, I don't know. Uh, so, what else? Labor mobility. So, teaching students about labor mobility and preparing for moving from one insular ghetto clique to another insular ghetto clique, and what that entails, as that's the reality. So teaching them there's some kind of stable, reliable social structure in a third world country is not preparing a student for reality. You actually have to orientate them to the changing political situation. Like a workplace would do. Right. So I suppose smothering them in transsexuality and homosexuality cues and that kind of thing. We can only imagine what's indoctrinated now, but I gotta tell you, what I was indoctrinated in, Burbank, Fancy, British Columbia, demented. A lot of it demented. I realized the teachers were losing their well shield, but however, not. I mean, they have a technical syllabus, but anyway, we can only imagine, and from what we're told, it's not very good. So anyway, in the modern workplace, you're orientated to the daily necessities of the workplace. So the political reality of this third world nation is not a open, generous society at all. Okay, that's the reality. It's a mean, extreme dystopia, and has now vulgarities. And if you don't utilize the modern technology and keep out of the worst stuff, worst social conditions, it's gonna consume you in demagoguery. So anyway, here's the effective strategy. So you're 18, you've graduated high school, your parents are kicking you out because they can't afford to feed you anymore. What do you do? Now, I suppose there's welfare, but you're not going to get far with that. Not a single young man or woman. So you're going to have to do something. The reason welfare's not going to get you for is because it's not enough to rent a single bedroom and feed yourself. That's the truth. So what do you do? Join a gang? Start robbing stores? Well, I suppose that's what's happening. There's not very many jobs, so the internet. So there's most nations, the third world nations. There's a government job search. Now in this one, and the provinces do too. Um, the companies have to enter their social insurance numbers and business numbers and things, so it's a little more reliable. Those companies are willing to document you even as a chattel born. And especially with our either observers and remote viewers, documents are important because they clarify what the agreement is. You write out exactly what the agreement is. If a landholder or whatever hires you on and doesn't even give you a hired on package, you're fucked. You'll literally be with a guy or a woman that's just having a fit all the time. Trying to grapple with whatever deranged idea comes into their head will be what they ask you to do. Right? Well, whatever. I suppose that's it. And so be suspicious of anyone who won't document that you work for them. Seriously, that is the nature of chattel forced labor. Oh yeah, they might pay you a wage, but entrance and exit strategies. There's Indeed, uh, and a few others, but most of them are predatory. Kijiji. Anyway, you find yourself a job on one of these sites and you apply to it. You write a good resume, and it's somewhere else, but you're too broke to get there. So what do you do? What do you do? Well, most jobs you can't go too filthy and tired after sleeping on a frozen ground or whatever. So what do you do? Right? Well, obviously you're gonna have to do something. You don't want to be a drug addict on the street or whatever. And there's food at homeless shelters, but it's awful. If you're not wise, you'll end up doing drugs with them. However, parents do kick their children out because they can't afford to feed them anymore, or they want to move a renter in or whatever. And what? Their plans, people. They don't care. No, you literally have to have your own independent intellect when you're an adult to have any empathy whatsoever for even for your own children after a degree. So it is what it is. So what do we do? Oh, see. What are the talking points of the liberals? Programs. Or, paternalistic, ordinary, paternalistic, extraordinary monarchs. See, elementary school, you learn your language, behavior, routine, and orientate to a trade. High school, you learn your trade. What is the point of teaching what unnecessary skills that aren't going to aid them in their self-preservation? Certainly philosophy for leaders is important, but they don't teach philosophy. What do they teach? Like how to dissect a frog? Do they even do that? No wonder we're dementedly obsessed with medical interventions. They only teach us to dissect frogs and a pyramid of elements. What is that? My whole high school, what? Oh, further in grammar. Maybe if you're going to be a radio broadcaster or something, you got to learn the finest grammar. A leader, yeah. If you're going to be a tradesman, carpenter, uh, do you need to know how to dissect a frog? Anyway, okay. So the education is quite chaotic and not focused on self-preservation. Anything that might question the clicks that provision the schools, they don't teach. Constructive criticism? Nope. Obedience to demagoguery? Yeah. Well, all right. So, labor mobility. So there's opportunities, and they're on the internet. So you make a plan. That's how it's done now. All third world countries, all second world countries, all first world countries. So if you're not part of a nepotism clique that can provide you with a career for your life, which obviously almost none of them are. You're going to have to do a job search. And you're going to have to be prepared to leave your home and join a new community in a far distant place, usually, with a different dialectic tradition. Your weather, like, caution you gets that. The alternative when you finally reach sexual maturity, adulthood, they don't want to live with you anymore. They can't afford to feed you, and you have no income. Won't hear that from them, the liberals, really. Usually, but that's what it is. So they all end up in the streets, or pregnant with a kid from an unreliable suitor, or whatever, rapist, something, unwanted attention, dishonorable. It extreme dystopia to doubts vulgarity. Learn it how to be an adult. Well, the community burns in genocide. So, so the labor mobility, media campaigns, liaison with the police, each region, obviously the culture regions. So, like in this one, it's the CSRD, Columbia Regional District. You'd interface liaison with each political clique, the Klansmen, and you'd make them aware there's going to be labor moving through the area on foot, in cars, old vehicles, rusty, barely working. Uh, I mean, is this bizarre? They want to take all vehicles off the streets, replace them with electronic vehicles. $160,000 electronic vehicles, and my labor, my human resources, are being kicked out because their parents can't afford to feed them, and they don't want them around. These two things do not coexist. Well, there's definitely a disconnect. Anyway, so you make each culture region, district aware, right? Right? And the liberals do that to a degree. So police and who else? The rich. You let the rich know the dirty workers are going to be coming through on a massive building program. Old cars is going to be unsightly. There might even be noise. Right? However, that's not what we have. So, it's unlikely that in this lifetime, Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, baby boomers, and sailings that we're going to be able to organize much, right? Ill prepared, ill tempered, ill resources. However, even if we build one house, at least that's one that's not homeless, right? Well, so the rich have a house, and there's one deprecated old apartment for one of us. Yeah. So an incremental benefit. less people on the streets. Don't in despair do nothing. Right? Don't in despair of being taught falsehoods. Do nothing in despair and end up on drugs and die in the streets. Or worse. Don't despair so much that you never endeavor. So the first thing is a job search. If there's no jobs, you might have to be prepared to live in the streets. If you can't find an agreement with your parents, if you don't have parents, if you've been ostracized from the community, whatever. If your community is so demented that they can't prepare for the obvious, right? You have to be practical. And there's a philosophy, Stoicism. Learning the values of Stoicism to deal with and dwell in reality with daily ritual and practice is essential for even the chattel born. Right? If we indoctrinate our children with fallacy, they will be unable to adapt to reality. Set realistic expectations. Labor mobility. Be prepared for a lot of rejection and cruelty from the average employer. Abusive, neglectful, unskilled employers of poor breeding. And what are you doing here? So even if they do prepare locals for labor mobility, you're going to be questioned. You have to be prepared to answer. Now, in dishonest places, they might arrest you. Unfortunately, most places are dishonest, so you have to be prepared for that as well. So, you were born into extreme dystopian and announced vulgarities. That's the reality. And most of the people that are in place, such as social workers, whatever, are predators. So, labor mobility. Obviously, if you've got a small clique of peers and you can endeavor to set out on your first job with each other, that's better. But that's not the norm. The norm is you get hired because they only need one person at some location. Right? So, you're going to be lonely and without people to support you. Hostile, degenerate environment. So, Union work. There is union work. However, mostly that's how the politically organized nepotism. They keep that work for their own children. So, mobility. Yeah, labor mobility. So you have to be prepared. Study what labor mobility is, the ins and outs, make notes, prepare, daily journaling. There are baby boomers that still don't know how to endeavor into another environment. And I mean, some of them have had jobs in one location where they were born their whole life and have no comprehension. And even if they did, they wouldn't project into the forum anything healthy. So, oh, anyway, the good news is there's organizer attempting to improve conditions. Anyway, improviser Augustine the First. That's where we're in.